There are moments in life when everything goes quiet. Not peaceful quiet, but the kind that follows an explosion. Moments where reality, as you understood it, stops making sense. Where your beliefs about safety, love, purpose, or even yourself are ripped from their foundations. Trauma doesn't just wound a person, it interrupts their entire worldview. Some people respond by clinging harder to the familiar. Some disconnect from everything. But there is another response, a rare one, where the shock of trauma pushes a person into existential clarity, a kind of X-ray vision about life. They begin sensing things others overlook. They question assumptions most people live inside without noticing. They develop a deeper internal world, as if they've been forced into contact with truths that ordinary life keeps hidden. Carl Jung recognized this pattern, that some individuals, after profound suffering, don't become weaker or colder. They become spiritual in a way that feels ancient, intuitive, and unexplainable. This video explores why trauma, for certain people, becomes the beginning not of destruction, but of inner reorientation, a shift towards meaning, depth, and the unseen dimensions of the psyche. 1. Trauma and the failure of ordinary life. We rarely realize how much of our lives depend on assumptions. I am safe. I know who I am. The world works in predictable ways. My future makes sense. Trauma shatters these assumptions. Jung believed that trauma forces the person to confront a truth that most people avoid. The surface of life is fragile. When the ordinary self collapses, the self built on roles, routines, and external expectations, something strange happens. The person can no longer rely on the identity they had before. Instead of asking, "How do I get back to normal?" some individuals begin asking, "Was normal ever real?" This shift marks the beginning of a spiritual orientation, not because they suddenly become religious or mystical, but because they've realized that their old identity was too small to hold the complexity of human experience. Trauma exposes the deeper architecture of the psyche, a place where symbols, intuition, and existential questions live. And for some people, once this layer is exposed, they cannot return to the shallow version of themselves. 2. Jung's key idea. Trauma forces a meeting with the inner world. Jung didn't believe trauma opens the heavens. Instead, he believed trauma pushes a person inward until they collide with their inner world, the world of dreams, instincts, values, fears, and deep intuitions that normally remain underground. This inner territory feels spiritual because it is unfamiliar, vast, ancient, and mysterious. People who enter this inner landscape often report a stronger awareness of their inner voice, a sense of symbolic meaning behind ordinary events, deeper empathy for suffering, heightened introspection, a pull toward activities that nourish the soul, a desire to understand the purpose of their life. This isn't spirituality in the religious sense, it's spirituality as Jung understood it, a living dialogue between the conscious mind and the deeper self. Trauma makes that dialogue impossible to ignore. When the outer world no longer feels trustworthy, the inner world becomes the new compass. 3. Why trauma transforms some people but not others. Not everyone becomes spiritually attuned after trauma. Jung believed transformation depends on 3 things. 1. The ego must be flexible, not rigid. If a person is too identified with their role, identity, or worldview, trauma feels like annihilation, not transformation. 2. The person must be capable of inner listening. Some people naturally turn inward when life breaks open. Others flee from themselves. 3. The unconscious must activate in a compensatory way. Jung believed the psyche tries to restore balance. If trauma pulls a person into meaninglessness, the unconscious may push forward intuitive insights, symbolic dreams, or existential reflections as a way of healing. This is why 2 people can experience the same trauma and one becomes spiritual while the other becomes hardened. Transformation isn't about the event, it's about the relationship between the conscious self and the inner world. 4. When the ego collapses, reality expands. Jung compared the ego to a lens that focuses reality into something manageable. Trauma fractures that lens, and through the cracks a person sees the limits of control, the inevitability of suffering, the fragility of identity, the reality of human interconnectedness, the mystery of existence. This expanded perspective often feels spiritual because it reveals layers of reality most people never look at. When the ego loses its tight grip, a person becomes receptive to experiences that feel larger than logic. Jung believed this is the beginning of psychic maturity, the shift from living as a personality to living as a soul. 5. Trauma and the shadow as a teacher. Trauma forces a confrontation with rejected parts of the self. The fear we suppress, the anger we hide, the vulnerability we deny, the grief we fear will consume us. Jung saw the shadow not as an enemy, but as a teacher, carrying truths we refuse to accept. When trauma brings the shadow to the surface, some people encounter a deeper honesty about themselves. And in that honesty, they discover wisdom, compassion, humility, empathy, insight. For these individuals, spirituality doesn't emerge as escape. It emerges as the only framework big enough to hold the complexity of what they've seen within themselves. 6. Archetypes awaken through suffering. Trauma can activate dormant archetypes, deep templates of human experience that guide the psyche. Some step into the role of the seeker, others awaken the inner healer. Some become visionaries, sensing patterns beyond the literal. Others embody the sage, developing unusual wisdom early in life. Jung believed that trauma sometimes strips away the false self so that an archetypal identity can come forward. These archetypes give shape to experiences that would otherwise feel meaningless. 7. Why spirituality becomes a rebuilding process. For many people, spirituality begins after trauma for a simple reason. It is the only framework large enough to rebuild their world. Meaning is how the psyche reorganizes itself. Spirituality, whether personal or religious, helps a person understand their suffering, rebuild a sense of self, create coherence out of chaos, connect with others, feel part of something larger, regain hope, cultivate inner stability. Jung believed that trauma requires a new worldview. The old one has already died. Spirituality becomes the scaffolding for a new one. 8. when trauma sets the individuation process in motion. For Jung, individuation, becoming one's true self, often begins with disruption, not comfort. Trauma interrupts the autopilot of life. It forces a person to examine themselves, their values, their patterns, their desires, their wounds. People who become spiritual afterward often describe discovering inner depth they didn't know they had, becoming more authentic, seeing the world symbolically, rejecting roles that once defined them, developing empathy and insight, feeling guided toward a new identity. The path they begin is not a religious path, but a psychological and spiritual one, a journey inward toward wholeness. 9. A different kind of transformation, not escape, but emergence. Jung warned that not all spirituality born from trauma is healthy. Some people use spirituality to avoid their pain. But true transformation, the kind Jung emphasized, makes a person more grounded, more real, more human, not detached from life. Real spirituality integrates the wound. It does not hide it. The transformed person emerges not as someone who escaped suffering, but as someone who learned to live truthfully because of it. Conclusion: when suffering reveals the inner world, trauma does not automatically create spirituality. But for some people, suffering forces an encounter with the deepest layers of the psyche. It strips away illusion. It awakens honesty. It reveals the symbolic dimension of life. It opens the inner world. It pushes the ego aside long enough for the deeper self to make itself known. Jung believed that many spiritual lives begin not in light, but in collapse. In the moment when everything false falls away and only the essential remains. For some people, trauma becomes the moment where the soul becomes visible. If this perspective resonated with you, consider subscribing for more Jung-inspired insights into the psyche, meaning, and the deeper layers of human experience. Thank you for watching, and remember, your suffering may have shaken you, but it may also be the moment your real inner life began.